rule the country for 20 years, reveals his initial plan was to adopt President Rodrigo Duterte as his running mate. Just a week after Mr. Duterte advised against getting COVID-19 booster shots, a top official now says vaccine doses for the third shot of over 1 million health workers are now ready for distribution as early as November. And almost 60 public schools from Visayas and Mindanao are gearing up for the pilot test of limited face-to-face classes that will finally begin next month. Revelations and frustrations from aspirants in day 6 of the week-long filing of certificates of candidacy. We take you live to the filing venue at Sofitel's Harbor Garden Kent in Pasay with our Belisa Lopez. Belisa, who are the big names you saw today?
Pia, today was a jam-packed day for as veteran politicians and first-timers who are all gunning for national posts in 2022. Wednesday was a busy day for the COMELEC in receiving more certificates of candidacy from aspirants in the 2022 general elections. The morning saw back-to-back filing for the presidential race from former Senator Bongbong Marcos and Senator Ping Lacson. The son of the late strongman Ferdinand Marcos came with his family a little past 11 in the morning. He's running as the standard bearer of Partido Federal ng Pilipinas but revealed he has no vice president yet. It should have been President Rodrigo Duterte, he said, but he backed out of the race and gave way to his longtime aide, now Senator Bongo.
I would not file my certificate of candidacy if I was not ready to campaign, if I was not ready to answer all your questions. We unify now in the face of the COVID crisis, in the face of the economic crisis.
In 2016, despite belonging to different political parties, many still pushed for the Duterte-Marcos tandem, even though Duterte's running mate then was Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. Marcos claims he only finalized his 2022 run on Tuesday, but says he's ready to fight. Meanwhile, Lacson arrived at the filing venue with running mate Senate President Tito Soto and some members of their senatorial lineup. Among them, re-electionist Senator Mig Zubiri, taekwondo athlete turned lawmaker Monsur Del Rosario, and former Quezon City Mayor Herbert Bautista.
Yes, we've always said naman before, di ba? We don't want to identify ourselves on any side of the fence. We'd rather be on the side of the Filipino people.
Among today's surprises were 2 doctors and a party list group representing medical frontliners after more than a year of battling the COVID-19 crisis. Lawyer Dr. Leo Olarte, former president of the Philippine Medical Association, and ophthalmologist Mingita Padilla, a longtime government advisor, both said they want to land a spot in the Senate amid extreme dissatisfaction about the country's pandemic response.
Logical that the final solution for this pandemic COVID-19 Delta variant will come from the qualified medical experts.
Mahigit 3 dekada na akong nagsisilbi sa taong bayan bilang doktor sa pribadong sektor. Panahon na siguro na subukan kong pumasok sa posisyon kung saan magiging mas malawak ang aking kakayanang makatulong sa bayan.
Resigned Public Works and Highways Secretary Mark Villar also filed his COC, hoping he can serve as senator alongside his mother, Cynthia Villar. Carmen Zubiaga, formerly executive director of the National Council on Disability Affairs, also threw her hat in the Senate race. Her goal is to pass inclusive laws to benefit some 13 million Filipinos with disabilities. More familiar names also put forward their intention to vie for party list seats. There's former Senator Joey Lina hoping to represent midwives, and resigned MMDA spokesman Celine Pialago for the Malasakit movement. Since the filing period started on October 1st, we now have 41 presidential aspirants. That includes labor leader Calyodi de Guzman, whose supporters faced off with police outside the hotel grounds. He vows to end contractual arrangements for employment if elected. We now have 9 vice presidential aspirants, 63 for senator, and 124 party list groups who want a seat in Congress. Back to you.
Felisa Lopez there reporting. Now, just as Bongbong Marcos was filing his COC in Pasay City this morning, members of the media covering the event and even COMELEC officials received notifications or emergency alerts calling for support for the former senator. And at the end of the message was, quote, hashtag BBM 2022. Now, these notifications, however, were disguised as, just as we said, emergency alerts. Some were even labeled as severe. The public usually receives these emergency alerts from the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, during earthquakes or weather disturbances. The Bayan Muna Party, this group wants an investigation into how Marcos's campaign was, they say, able to, quote, hijack the emergency alerts frequency of government agencies. The NDRRMC denies having a hand in the incident. Officials explain their use of the mobile alert system is only for warnings that are hazard-specific, time-bound, and area-specific as stated by law. They add this is the first time they encountered a problem like this. The National Telecommunications Commission, a member of the NDRRMC, says it is investigating the matter. I'm going to be speaking with NTC Deputy Commissioner Edgardo Caballos later on news.ph at 7. Meanwhile, this just in, this from the campaign team of Bongbong Marcos, Attorney Vic Rodriguez, his campaign manager, saying that they, hold on, let me get my notes, that they were, that they support this NTC investigation into this incident, and that this happened, that they themselves, the team themselves, even Marcos's family, received the same emergency alert notification, and they say that this was a demolition job on him. And they appealed also for groups, they said, that were behind this so-called despicable deed not to use or not to mess with government systems. 7 months into the country's COVID-19 vaccination drive, 22 million, or over 20% of the population, have been fully inoculated, while 25 million are waiting for their second dose. Some experts now raise the need for booster shots as studies on waning efficacy surface, including Pfizer's vaccine, which makes up 19% of the country's supply. Carolyn Bonkin has that story.
A study published on the Lancet Medical Journal shows Pfizer vaccine's effectiveness against hospitalization remains high at 90% 6 months after the second dose. But the effectiveness against symptomatic infection was down from 88% on the first month of getting 2 doses to only 47% after 6 months.
Pwede kang mahawaan, pwede kang magka-COVID, pero yung risk mo of getting the severe and becoming hospitalized is less compared to getting the infection.
With or without variants of concern like Delta, researchers found the vaccine's effectiveness really wane over time, just like the flu vaccine that needs to be given annually.
Worry ko are the immunocompromised, the elderly, and those comorbidities, because we've seen a lot of this na in our patients na even they are vaccinated, mataas pa rin ang chance mo na you can get the infection and develop the severe infection.
Recent reports also show waning efficacy of other vaccine brands. In August, a study published in The Lancet says Sinovac vaccine retains at least 70% effectiveness against alpha and beta variants, but its efficacy was down to 48% against Delta 6 months from the second dose. Though not yet peer-reviewed, UK-based Zoe COVID-19 study shows protection from both Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines declining on the 4 to 6 month. Without booster shots, an infectious diseases expert warns of more breakthrough infections later this year or early next year.
Pag tumataas ang breakthrough infections, baka back to zero tayo.
On Wednesday, vaccine czar Carlito Galvez hinted on giving booster shots before the year ends. The study on mixing and matching vaccines has yet to start. But for the test, experts agreed to give Sinovac as an initial dose while checking its compatibility with other brands for the second dose and booster shot.
Using Sinovac as the base because this has been the one that has been initially given to a big number of Filipinos, and also because we do not have that much studies related to Sinovac.
By end of September, the Food and Drug Administration confirmed almost 1,600 vaccinated individuals still had COVID-19. While many are asymptomatic, 128 died and majority did not complete their vaccination. Still, doctors on the ground are saying there could be more breakthrough infections that have not yet been reported. Caroline Bunkin, CNN Philippines.
In the United States, Johnson & Johnson asks the Food and Drug Administration to authorize its booster shot. The company submitted data showing a second dose increases immunity to 94% when given 2 months after the first shot. Immunity improves 12-fold when given at 6 months. But the firm says protection remains stable over time, leaving it to officials to decide who should get the vaccine and when. The FDA will meet next week on Johnson & Johnson and Moderna's requests, which applied earlier. AstraZeneca also seeks regulatory approval for an antibody therapy. The British-Swedish drug maker says the treatment prevents symptomatic COVID-19, particularly among those who don't get an immune response from vaccines. The drug reduced the risk of symptoms by 77% based on trials, but more data is expected later this year. AstraZeneca is still discussing supply agreements with governments globally. Coming up on Newsnight, government looks to roll out booster shots to some health workers next month if given approval. And pilot in-person classes are also set to begin next month. Find out which public schools were given the go signal to join when we return.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. The vaccine czar says it is all systems go once the country gets the green light to administer booster shots. And despite the steady shipments expected to arrive, Tristan Adalo tells us the government is revising its year-end vaccination target.
Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez says over 1 million healthcare workers who were vaccinated against COVID-19 in March and April are set to receive their third dose. The supply for these additional doses is now ready, but the go signal lies with the Health Department and the recommendation of the World Health Organization.
Based on our readings, kailangan talaga magkaroon po tayo ng third dose na ginagawa ng ating mga ibang bansa ngayon. Pagka once na nagkaroon na ng approval sa WHO at saka DOH na pwede na natin bakunahan ang ating healthcare workers ng third dose, meron na po tayo nakalaan.
Galvez adds that once there is approval, the rollout for the third dose will begin in November. The latest will be in January 2022. At least 15 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines are expected to arrive this month. Despite the seemingly steady vaccine supply, the government cuts to half its target of fully vaccinated individuals by year-end.
We revised our targets nga, no? Kasi nga yung supply talagang ngayon lang bumubuhos, no? So what we're targeting as a conservative target is 50% of the target population, which is roughly around 37 million fully vaccinated individuals by the year end.
For Calabarzon, the National Task Force commits to give more vaccines to intensify the vaccination for priority groups, including tourism workers. The government expects that the vaccination rate in the region will be at par with Metro Manila before the end of November. Meantime, Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat is pushing for the no-age restrictions in tourist destinations.
Kung pwede na sana no-age restrictions. Kasi marami sa ating mga kababayan, like kunyari si Kong Jack, hindi naman yan mag-out of town kung hindi kasama mga anak niya. So, yun ang one of the reasons bakit hindi pumupunta. So, we're hoping na sana by Thursday, payagan nila muli. Kasi 2 beses na nila o 3 beses na pinayagan ng IATF yung no-age restrictions.
And ahead of the Christmas season, the IATF also eyes shorter quarantine for returning overseas Filipino workers from 14 days to 7 days. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
Some students in the Visayas and Mindanao will be back in physical classrooms next month as the pilot implementation of face-to-face classes begins. As AC Nichols reports, 59 public schools there so far have been allowed to participate.
November 15 marks the beginning of the school year's second quarter. The Education Department has decided it will also be the first day of the planned pilot run for in-person classes. In a Senate Basic Education panel hearing, the DepEd said the pilot will run until end of January next year. The agency targets to reopen more schools by March.
We will already be preparing for assessments of possible expansion schools so that by the time we are able to submit the report to the President and the recommendation, hopefully in favor of bigger expansion.
Only 59 public schools so far passed the Health Department's assessment to carry out face-to-face classes. Most are located in Visayas and Mindanao, in the provinces of Masbate, Aklan, Antique, Cebu, Zamboanga Sibugay, Zamboanga del Sur, Lanao del Norte, Sarangani, and North Cotabato. The DepEd reiterated that only fully vaccinated teaching and non-teaching personnel will be included in the pilot. Based on its latest data, 57% or over 580,000 out of its almost 1 million personnel have been inoculated against COVID-19.
As early as July ay nanawagan na po kami talaga sa Department of Education and even last year pa po, no? Sana yung vaccination po ay i-prioritize yung mga teachers.
Nagugulat ako na sobrang babaho dun sa DepEd. Kasi dun sa mga ibang departamento, ang tataas na nung vaccination rate nila. Parang sa akin, ang teachers natin are isa sa important frontliners.
Senators also questioned the DepEd's timeline, asking why the agency did not plan to open more schools sooner.
They're walking around, hand in hand, going to their neighbor's house, unsupervised, walang pasok. So that's my question. Can we disabuse ourselves of that image that we are taking them from a very safe space to suddenly an exposure to school?
There were questions too on how effective the pilot run could be if schools in the National Capital Region are not included. Health officials explained reopening schools in urban areas is trickier, as these mostly remain at moderate or high risk for COVID-19. AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
Rains expected to continue in a number of areas even as Tropical Depression Lani exited the country. The Weather Bureau Pagasa forecasts cloudy skies with scattered rains and thunderstorms in Metro Manila, Pangasinan, Zambales, as well as Bataan, Tarlac, Pampanga, Cavite, Batangas, Occidental, Mindoro, and Palawan. Pagasa says it is watching a brewing cyclone that may enter the country's monitoring area. Only 2 days left for the filing of certificates of candidacy, but the list of bets will not be final until after November 15th. Now, that's because of the substitution option, the tactic used by then Davao City Mayor Rodrigo Duterte en route to the presidency in 2016. Our Melissa Lopez breaks down what happens in that scenario.
Filipinos love drama, and some politicians know just how to play it. Existing election rules allow last-minute political aspirants to join the race through substitution, which was how then Davao City Mayor Rodrigo Duterte became one of the presidential candidates in 2016. But the political analyst thinks a similar maneuver might not work this time.
I'm not also sure whether people will still buy it because it's no longer fresh.
Comelec says there are two types of substitution. Voluntary, where an aspirant gives way to a fellow party member aiming for the post. There's a November 15 deadline, so names on the ballot will only be finalized after that. There's also involuntary substitution if a candidate dies or is disqualified from the race. A relative who shares the same surname may jump in until noontime of election day. Votes cast will be counted in his favor. Lawyer Tony Lavinia, former dean of the Ateneo School of Government, believes Senator Bongo could be a placeholder for Mr. Duterte in the vice presidential race. He adds, the system is deceptive.
You're fooling the people. You're lying to the people. From the very beginning, you know what you want to do. And then you just pretend that you've changed your mind.
Poll watchdog Namfrel also thinks it's a, quote, opportunistic tactic. For UP Associate Professor Jean Franco, changing bets mid-game gives a sense that aspiring leaders are not serious about serving the people.
The fact that we have that creates so much uncertainty. How can you even begin to ask them about their platforms if you do not know who is running for which position?
Both believe it's time to scrap the substitution option to leave less room for politicians to toy with the election process.
This is an old trick, and an old trick needs to be retired. We need to have more mature politics in this country.
Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
Here's a quick look at the latest aspirants to formalize their bids for local government posts. Here in Metro Manila, in the city of Manila, Vice Mayor Honey Lacuna filed her certificate of candidacy for mayor. Lacuna is on her second term. Representative Yul Servo will be her running mate under the political party Ascenso Manileño. In Pasig City, actress Angelou De Leon filed her COC for councilor. She's running under the slate of Mayor Vico Soto, who is seeking re-election. The Abalos family aims to keep the top elective posts in Mandaluyong City. Former Mandaluyong Mayor Benjamin Abalos Sr. eyes a comeback. The 86-year-old filed his certificate of candidacy for mayor. His daughter-in-law, Menji Abalos, who is incumbent mayor, signed up to run for vice mayor. The elder Abalos was Mandaluyong mayor from 1988 to 1997. Heading now to the regions, in Ormoc City in eastern Visayas, Mayor Richard Gomez formalized his bid for a congressional post. He's running for latest 4th District. His wife, Lucy Torres Gomez, who currently holds the post, is eyeing to swap seats with him, but she has yet to file her COC. In Cabuyao City, Laguna, an aspirant turned heads during his filing by donning a costume inspired by the hit Netflix series Squid Game. City Councilor Jimbo Alcabasa is seeking re-election. Now, CNN Philippines wishes to clarify a story last night about a survey on the Duterte administration's approval ratings in select national issues. Pulse Asia conducted a poll on September 6 to 11 instead of September 1 to 6, as earlier reported. Now, still ahead, one of our own queens is joining the panel to decide the next Miss South Africa. And the Oxford English Dictionary makes way for the Korean wave in its latest update. Keep it here on CNN Philippines.
Gumagaan ang inuman pag sanliglay. Oy, musta?
Ako, stressed sa work, kaya ini-imagine kong nasa beach ako.
Tapos ng mabigat na araw, mag-inuman with friends and sanliglay.
Ulitin natin to. Ang alin.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
Pia Wurtzbach is heading to the pageant scene overseas again, but this time as a judge. The Miss Universe 2015 title holder announced on Instagram that she was tapped to be one of the selection panel members for Miss South Africa 2021. Another Filipina queen will join her in the event, with Catriona Gray hosting the pre-show portion. This will not be Wurtzbach's first judging stint. She was also a member of the Miss Universe 2017 panel. While K-pop takes over the music industry, the influence of Korean culture goes even further, making it to the books. The Oxford English Dictionary, or OED, added over 20 words of Korean origin in its September update. Among these is the term describing today's popular Korean language TV programs, K-drama. Popular dishes also made the cut, such as bulgogi, referring to marinated beef or pork slices, and banchan, meaning a small vegetable side dish served with rice, and Hallyu, or the Korean wave of entertainment that has swept the world, was also included. The OED explained that these new words were adopted because of this widespread Hallyu that can be felt not just in film or music, but also in language. We have your first look at the upcoming Game of Thrones prequel series. CNN's Rick Damigella gives us the details and other stories with today's Hollywood Minute.
Fire. And blood.
The Targaryens are coming. HBO Max released the first teaser for the upcoming Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon. Expect more dark drama and fiery action when the highly anticipated series arrives in 2022. Adele is back. The acclaimed British singer announced the release of her first single in over 5 years, titled Easy on Me. The Grammy winner teased a bit of the piano-driven track and its black and white video before its release on October 15th.
Your obsession with other people's lives is pathetic.
Nobody at the school would get called out for anything if it weren't for me.
Simon?
Jesus, he's allergic.
I don't think he's breathing.
Want to help?
5 students walk into detention, only 4 walk out. It's not a joke, it's the plot of the drama series One of Us is Lying, based on the best-selling YA thriller by Karen M. McManus. The first 3 episodes drop Thursday on Peacock. In Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
80 days left before Christmas, and that is it for now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again at 7 for News.ph. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. Presence sa Zibay Utso sa bayan sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda, dili sa Daklayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may dalaon sa katawhan at daw mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda, sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
You look at yourself in the mirror and you realize your eyes are red. They're also teary, itchy, and painful. You might have pink eye, also known as conjunctivitis, which is highly contagious. Many of us refer to it as sore eyes. But the term sore eyes can actually mean any number of conditions caused by various factors. Here on MedTalk Health Talk, we'll talk about the different types of sore eyes, what's causing them, and how they can be treated. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. You're watching CNN Philippines. You look at yourself in the mirror and you realize your eyes are red. They're also teary, itchy, and painful. You might have pink eye, also known as conjunctivitis, which is highly contagious. Many of us refer to it as sore eyes. But the term sore eyes can actually mean any number of conditions caused by various factors. Here on MedTalk Health Talk, we'll talk about the different types of sore eyes, what's causing them, and how they can be treated. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. You're watching CNN Philippines. Whether it's an infection like conjunctivitis or eye strain from too much screen time, almost everyone has experienced sore eyes at some point. Technically speaking, sore eyes can refer to conditions that cause mild to severe soreness in your eyes. It can take many forms. So how can you tell which type of sore eyes you have? To tell us more about this, we have Dr. Eric Chongson. He's an emergency medicine specialist and consultant at the Asian Hospital Department of Emergency Medicine. We're also joined by Dr. George Ko Jr., an ophthalmologist and eye center director of Chinese General Hospital and Medical Center. Thank you both doctors for joining us here today. Now, when you hear the term sore eyes, a lot of people immediately associate it to pink eye or conjunctivitis because it's very common. And many of you who are watching us may have experienced this at one point or another. But what really happens to the eyes when you have conjunctivitis? Can you answer this first, Dr. George?
Sore eyes can take many forms. So actually, sore eyes, soreness of the eye is, I have a diagram here, okay? This is your eye. So it is enveloped by a thin membrane. And then during sore eyes, this thin membrane becomes swollen. It's red and engorged. The blood vessels are engorged. And there are many causes. No? It can be viral, which takes up about 80% of the causes of conjunctivitis, 20% bacterial. And then there are other causes like you mentioned, Dr. Freddy, from eye strain, digital eye strain, from using too much of your gadgets when your eyes get dry. And then there's also allergic conjunctivitis and irritating conjunctivitis from smoke, from dust.
Okay, so ang mas common talaga, Dr. George, viral type of conjunctivitis rather than bacteria. Let's remind our viewers, Doctor, kung ano bang difference ng virus at ng bacteria?
So viral conjunctivitis, well, we are quite familiar at this time, no, because of COVID. It's a viral infection, so it's an infection from, actually, it's not an organism, but it's a RNA particle. And there are also viruses that cause a lot of redness, such as adenovirus during the flu season, the influenza. And then bacterial are caused by bacterial organisms which contaminate the eye. For example, you go swimming. For example, you rubbed your eyes from having contaminated fingers and from contaminated surfaces. Then the allergic is from irritants in the environment.
Okay, that's good that you mentioned the different ways in which these viral and bacterial types of conjunctivitis can be obtained. Dr. Eric, can you explain to our viewers what is the most common way para naikakalat itong sore eyes?
The most common type of conjunctivitis is really the viral type. And as we know right now, as we're dealing with the pandemic, a virus is caused through droplets. So a lot of times, the same way COVID is spread, viral conjunctivitis is spreading the same way. Nowadays, to tell you honestly, in the emergency room, we have seen a dip in the cases of conjunctivitis. Maybe it coincides with the fact that we've been preaching hand hygiene a lot. Viral infection is really spread through airborne particles, and whenever you cough, sneeze, touch something, and then touch your eyes, that's how you get these kind of organisms.
It's good that you mentioned conjunctivitis and how it is spread, and it's similar also viral, just how COVID-19 is. But do we know now, Dr. Eric, is conjunctivitis or ang sore eyes ba ay pwedeng simptomas din ng COVID-19?
Well, that's a very good question, Fred. The thing with COVID right now is the main symptoms are really respiratory. So if you see a patient purely with complaints pertaining only to the eye, without the respiratory symptoms, without the cough, colds, and fever that comes with COVID infections, then it's the risk of having COVID-19 illness is really high. If you have those illnesses with the conjunctivitis. But if a patient comes in with just purely a pink eye or redness in the eye, itchiness in the eye, without the respiratory symptoms, in all likelihood, this is just purely conjunctivitis, either viral or bacterial.
Okay, very good. Now, the good news is pink eye, more often than not, is rarely serious if treated early. Dr. Ko, what is the proper treatment for conjunctivitis?
The sore eyes, which is viral, usually you just wait it out. You apply a cold compress and then isolation. Hygiene, of course, like Dr. Eric said. You have to be very clean. Make sure you do not contaminate other surfaces or other materials that may come in contact with other people. For bacterial, we can use antibiotics, topical or oral treatment if needed. But both is best seen by an ophthalmologist or a specialist so that they can determine which is which and what kind of treatment is best.
Ultimately, practicing good hygiene is the secret to preventing pink eye from spreading. Dr. Eric, what are some of the good hygiene habits to help prevent pink eye that you can advise our viewers?
Well, I mean, like I said, it coincides with the pandemic that we have now. Now, basically, if you're doing what you're doing to prevent the acquiring the COVID disease, that's exactly the ways of preventing this illness as well, preventing conjunctivitis. No? So if you just wash your hands all the time, make sure that you avoid rubbing your eye if you have irritation or pain in the eye. Avoid touching your eye, and that should prevent a lot of the complications associated with conjunctivitis. But again, the mainstay here, I mean, if you just do hand hygiene often and a lot, and you make sure that you clean your hands well, we shouldn't have a problem with conjunctivitis.
And your eyes can also get strained or sore due to overexposure to screens. This is happening a lot these days, especially with our work from home setup, when you're staring at your computer screens all day or your gadgets, or many even spend hours texting away on their phones. We'll discuss this after a short break. We're your connection to healthcare here on MedTalk Health Talk. Stay with us.
Oh, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where your health comes first. Itchy red eyes don't always mean you have pink eye or conjunctivitis. There's also a condition known as digital eye strain or computer eye strain, and this can cause vision as well as eye problems. We'll discuss why this happens and how best to treat it. If you spend too long staring at a screen, more often than not, you'll start to notice dry or your eyes becoming very red, maybe even blurred vision. Dr. George, why does this happen kapag matagal na nakatingin sa screen ng mga tao?
Primarily, at this time, the reason why we get this irritation because we do not blink too much, we stare too long, and then the positioning, the light source from the computer screen might be too bright. It causes strain. And then there's this, what we call the blue light effect. There's a very minimal blue light that comes from our screens, and they cause quite eye strain also, or we say eye fatigue. So there's fatigue when you're looking too long at a certain screen.
Now, Dr. Eric, a lot of people who have this eye strain while staring at their screens, but what type of symptoms should they be wary about that may require more professional care or a visit to the emergency room?
Well, in the beginning, of course, all these things, when you have discomfort in the eye, a little bit of redness in the eye, they all overlap. No, it could be a strain, it could be conjunctivitis, beginning conjunctivitis. But the key here is after, I guess, with eye strain, after you've rested for a while, when you wake up after a nap or after you've rested, you should feel okay. But if it persists, and of course, if, like Dr. George said a while ago, if there's some discharge which could indicate a bacterial infection, it may be time to visit us at the emergency room.
Yes, that's right. So, but for any symptom or any treatment, always consult your emergency room specialist or your ophthalmologist, especially when it comes to your eyes. Now, it isn't just the long hours of screen time that causes eye strain. There are other factors that could be making your vision worse. Dr. Ko, what causes digital...
Oh, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress. Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
It's easy to take your eyes' health for granted, but with overexposure to screens nowadays and other possible causes of sore eyes, there are things you can do to care for your eyes and ultimately improve your overall well-being. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Our eyes are very delicate and complex, and nutrition plays a key role in keeping them healthy. For example, many say carrots are a good source for eye health. Now, Dr. Eric, what types of food can you recommend to our viewers that can help improve their eye health?
Vitamins like vitamin C help a lot as far as the nutrition of the eye. Zinc, I know, is a nutrient that is very important as far as the eye is concerned. You know, if you take your multivitamins every day, take your leafy vegetables, leafy green vegetables, and like you mentioned a while ago, carrots. If you eat healthy, a balanced diet, I think it'll follow that your eye will also be healthy.
Very good. Now, Dr. George, on to you. What kind of tips can you give our viewers when it comes to overall eye health?
Aside from vitamin C, another good vitamin that we should not forget is vitamin A and E and the omega-3, the fatty acids, which are present in fish. Also, fruits and vegetables are also rich with vitamins that can help our eyes. And what's more important is enough rest, enough sleep. So sleeping is also important because that's the time when you can rest your eyes. And of course, adherence to the protocol of not using too much of your eye and your gadgets and taking long periods of break and rest.
Okay, now I want to talk quickly about dry eyes naman, because if your eyes are dry and dehydrated, your vision can also be affected. Plus, you would be feeling very uncomfortable. Dr. George, what are some of the symptoms ng dry eyes?
Okay, so dry eye is quite common nowadays because of the digital eye strain. It comes with using your gadgets too much. So dry eye is a condition wherein the tear production may not be enough, or the evaporation of your tears is quite fast, so it leaves your eye dry, leaves your eye blurry. There is some gritty sensation. Usually happens early morning when you wake up or during the time that you're using your gadgets. When you don't blink too much, then the eyes begin to strain, and sometimes, of course, it gets red. Quite common also with people, older people, and also quite common with people past menopause, hormonal changes. If you're taking anti-allergy medications, that's also quite common that you get dry eyes.
Now, if you experience unusual problems that are causing pain or discomfort, such as itchiness, or your vision is affected, go see your doctor. Thank you, emergency medicine specialist Dr. Eric Chongson and our ophthalmologist Dr. George Ko Jr. We appreciate your time very much. We're here to help build a healthier future for you. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk, only on CNN Philippines.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXPO. Presence sa Sindang Utso sa Dalan sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda, dili sa Lagdagan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sigahan na may galaon sa katawan, ang damo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda, sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Anianani ning sigahan inyong masundan, pagtanaw o pagpaminaw ang tulumanon sa Back to Christ Revelation Healing Crusade of Father Lahi. Usa ka oras kini nga programa sa espirituhanong pagtulunan kausa sa matag simana. Dinhi lamang sa RPN, DXKO Teleradyo. Sunda ang mga mensahe. Ipaabot sa Back to Christ Revelation Healing Crusade of Father Lahi sa matang Domingo, alas 5 hangtod alas 6 sa buntag.
Buhay na alaala sa kamatayan ni Yesu Cristo.
Sa tinguha nga makalikay sa COVID-19, importante ang kanunay nga pagpanghugas sa kamot. Kanus aman kini nato pagabuhaton, human manikma, muubo o muhatsing, human makabisita sa usa ka pampublikong lugar, apil na sa public transportation, merkado o simbahan. Manghugas sa kamot human makahupot o butang sa gawas sa panimalay, apil na sa kwarta. Manghugas sa kamot sa dili pa o kuman sa pagatiman sa masakiton. Sa dili pamukaon o kuman sa pagkaon. Sa kinatibukan, kinahanglan gayud kitang manghugas sa kamot, ilabi na human sa paggamit sa pansayan, human sa paghawid sa basura, human paghawid sa mga hayop o binuhing mananap, ug syempre human makita natong hugaw ang atong mga kamot. Atong dunduman nga ang virus mahimong paspas mo kuyanap gikan sa usa ka tawo ngadto sa uban pinaagi sa imong kamot. Busa, usa ka sayon og paratong paagi nga kapugngan ang pagkuyanap sa virus mao kanunay pagpanghugas sa kamot gamit ang sabon ug tubig. Usa ka pahinumdom gikan sa RPN DXKO Teleradyo. Sa tanang higayon, ilabi na ning panahon sa pandemya, siguraduhang nga kondisyon kanunay ang atong panglawas, ligon ang atong immune system. Mag-Bioprovix na ta. Ang Bioprovix supplement ay may 7 ka strain sa probiotics plus prebiotics nga motabang pag-away sa bad bacteria sa atong lawas o paligon sa immune system. Sa matag tuban nato sa Bioprovix capsule, maprotektahan ang atong lawas batok sa mga virus na magatid sa mga sakit. Mapalit sa kanang branches sa butika pangmasa o sa uban pang butika. Aprobado sa FDA o Food and Drug Administration. Giresita sa mga doktor o ganunay clinical studies. Busa, aron masabtan nato ang kamayundanon sa Bioprovix supplement at ani ang ilang programa nga Kung Healthy, Happy. Matag-adlang Domingo kini sa alas 8 ngadto sa alas 8:30 sa buntag sa RPN DXKO Teleradyo.
Atangi mga higala, datag adlaw Sabado, ang programang Caravan on Air sa Pure Himag Extra. Kauban ning inyong Kuya Ricky. Caravan on Air sa Pure Himag Extra. Sugod sa alas 7 hangtod sa alas 8 sa buntag. Dinhilang sa RPN DXKO Cagayan de Oro, ang Radyo Ronda. Inyong mabati ang promosyon sa Pure Himag Extra o ang mga balak binisaya na makapahinumdum sa inyong mga kagahapon.
Nining panahon sa pandemya, importante ang paggamit o paghatod sa hustong impormasyon. Ang pagpakalap sa peking balita o fake news may tungkol sa mga bakuna batok sa COVID-19, naghatod sa kahadlok o pagduda. Tungod niini, padayon nga gipahinumduman ng publiko nga ang tanang mga bakuna epektibo o luwas nga pangdepensa batok COVID-19. Ang mga bakuna sa COVID-19 miagi kini sa masubsob nga pagtuon o pagsusi sa mga eksperto. Dili kita basta-basta mutuo sa mga hulungihong lamang. Inay, mukuha sa mga impormasyon gikan sa kasaligan o beripikadong tinubdan. Ang taong may tiwala sa agham, makakamit ang kaligtasang inaasam. Usa ka pahinumdom gikan sa DOH, KBP ug niining Sibiyahan. Alaman sa mga kausaban sa quarantine restrictions, ipadayon nato ang pagsunod sa minimum public health standards tungod kay mao paghihapon kini ang nagunang paagi aron kapugan ang pagkatap sa COVID-19 sa atong nasod.
aron kalikayan ang pagbalik sa mas higpit nga quarantine restrictions ug masiguro ang padayong pagbangon sa atong mga komunidad. Ayo nato ang atong pag-amping. Gidapit nato ang tanang lokal nga pangagamhanan nga ipatuman paghihapon sa husto ang prevent, detect, isolate, quarantine, treat, reintegrate strategies ug mga safety protocols alang sa kaluwasan sa tanan. Sa lahat ng oras, tayo'y mag-ingat upang ating mga komunidad ay maingat. Usa ka mensahe gikan sa DOH, KBP ug niining Sibiyahan.
Denise a lunch break with a tourniquet and jaw. Denise a lunch break with a tourniquet and jaw. Mag-ready na ta, kay 11:30 na. Abogado nga ambungan nga duha. Denise a lunch break with a tourniquet and jaw. Denise a lunch break with a tourniquet and jaw. Denise a lunch break with a tourniquet and jaw. Wala o negosyo o lifestyle, hindi lang sa lunch break. With a tourniquet and jaw. Denise a lunch break with a tourniquet and jaw. Denise a lunch break.
Lunch Break with Attorney Ken Namala and Attorney Joff Namalata. Sabado, 11:30 sa buntag hanggang 12:30 sa hapon sa RPN TV5 o DXKO Radio.
Ratsada na ang pagyagyag sa mga programa o proyekto sa opisina ni Congresswoman Juliet Uy sa ikadlawang distrito sa Misamis Oriental. Ratsada na sa mga batiko sa kadilingbanong isyu o politika. Sa way pagduha-duha, ratsada na. At ang ikanunay ang programang Ratsada sa Kautuhon, alas 12:30 paingon sa alas 2 sa hapon, Lunes paingon Sabado sa RPN TXKO Teleradyo. Sunda ang programang Lambo Misamis Oriental aron may balaan mo ang mga kalambuan o pangitabo sa Misamis Oriental ubos ni Governor Bambi Mano. Lambo Misamis Oriental mohatag katinawan sa mga issues nga may kalabigitan ang pagdumala sa probinsya. Gusto mo bang updated ka? Gusto mo bang matinawan? O gusto mo bang masayran ang mga pangitabo karon sa Misamis Oriental? At tangi, matag adlaw, Lunes paingon Sabado, alas 8 paingon sa alas 10 ang takna sa buntag, dili lamang sa RPN TV5 o DXK Radio 1368. Lambo, Misamis Oriental.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. Presence sa Sinday Utso sa dalan sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda, TV sa Lagpayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawan, ang daw serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda, sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Maayong gabi kanaton tanan ani anasab kita sa atong naandan ngadto lumanon ang kasikas sa kagabion. Kumusta diha kaninyong tanan mga kaigsunan labi na gyud 80 ka barangay dinis Dapayan sa Cagayan de Oro. O gingon man usab sa mga kalungsuran sa Misamis Oriental, maayong gabi diha kaninyong tanan. Una to kining niya pagpanimbaya ang diha sa Bohol. Good evening diha kaninyong tanan mga sanog sana. O gingon man kang Attorney Mendez, maayong gabi diha kanimo sir og get well soon. Nakakuha naman gini sila, naka-adto na gini niya sila sa Comelec. Okay, good evening diha kaninyon tanan. O, gingon man kang kagawad si Rodo, good evening diha kanimo Wad. Kumusta ang atong una nga pagtudlo? Oh, grabe kaayo. No, trainer pa, nya din kagawad pa gyud, negosyante pa gyud, halos nanatanan sa iha bitaw. Okay, good evening diha kanimo o gingon man si Sir Manny De Leon. Good evening diha kanimo sir. Get well soon diha kanimo. Sawam kaninya nga lubat man gani niya in taon sila. So hopefully nga kanang okay na gid ang tanan kay nag-eskwela na ba? Oh, so na ang klase. O niya ang atong mga estudyante, ang mga ang mga module na lang kinahanglan ma-ready na gyud kanaa, no? Kay by schedule ra pa kinahanglan kukuhaon sa mga ginikanan. Okay, maayong gabi diha kaninyong tanan labi na gyud dinhi sa Kauswagan. Kumusta diha kanimo Ma'am Gina? Kumusta ang kinabuhi sa kana bitaw mabahaan bitaw no, masudlan og tubig ang atong panimalay di gid lalim kay daghan gid madamage niya na. O, kumusta usab si Ma'am Dailin? Good evening diha kanimo Ma'am Day. Karon pa gyud nako nabasa ang imong mensahe. Sa sige nato kuri-kuri bitaw sa atong cellphone. Uy, pasensya na gyud kaganina pa man din niya sa ugto. O, may gabi usab labi na gyud sa atong mga suking ating paminaw din sa Hasaan Misamis Oriental. Labi na sa mga Tarukan family. Good evening diha kaninyo. O gingon man kang Ate Maria Peliselda din sa San Antonio, Hasaan, Misamis Oriental. O may gabi usab, labi na din sa Claveria. Okay, so mga tanawon lang no, not sure. Pero murag doon na schedule nga plano nga maglaag. Kumusta diha kanimo Ma'am Linlin sa mga Sagolay family? May gabi diha kaninyong tanan. O gingon man kang Gay Marie dina sa Maluko, Manolo Portich, Bukidnon. Salamat kayo sa imong mga rambutan, ang imong mga durian. O niya gusto pa nga palaagon sa iyang resort. Wow, nindota kay dunay dindot kayo nga kuan swimming pool. Naman gina makita gyud nimo diha sa mga bukid-bukid nga area, labi na gyud ang tubig flowing bitaw susundota gid kaayo. Dinis kagayan bro, ana hindi na ta makakita ni beauty tagi kayo. So katong uban, wato na lang gyud sa mga bukid-bukid nga area. Okay, so daghan kay salamat no, labi na gyud sa atong mga suking ating paminaw kang Ma'am Joy Martinez dinha sa Maryland, USA. Kumusta diha kanimo Ma'am Joy? May buntag diha kanimo. O gingon man usab si Yoyo Federico Hermias. Okay, daghan kay salamat diha kaninyong tanan no. Ang atong mga viewers, ang atong mga listeners, kumusta diha kaninyong tanan? O daghan kayong salamat kang Sir Dory Sambalon, maayon na lang kay wala nag-ulan. Okay, tinuod yun, murag niduyog yun kay sir ang atong panahon. Ma'am Terry, good evening diha kanimo, thank you for watching. O si Ma'am Joy, wow, inga pa ni Ma'am Joy. Hello Idol Guapo Nikki Hermias, have a great morning to you, stay safe always, God bless you. Thank you very much from Maryland, USA. Wow. O gingon man usab si Ma'am Lodi Bings. Good evening diha kanimo Ma'am Lodi. O salamat po kaayo no. Salamat po kaayo sa kwan kanang ang atong programa. Wala lang gyud kwan bitaw no, kanang wala lang gyud untay ulan-ulan. no, continue na lang taon sa nga pag-abot sa Sabado mo siaw mo pud ang atong panahon nga gaulan, grabe kayo. O bahala lang ta magulan basta wala lang kapalpakan, di ba? Kay usay mapuanta sa internet. Okay, so thank you for watching Sir Federico Hermias. Salamat kaayo diha kanimo. O daghang kayong salamat sa tanan nga nanlili dinhi sa atong atong group chat. Daghang kayong salamat diha kaninyong tanan. Og balo ko nga ang uban nanihapon na, ang uban nagkuan pa kamulo pagdigamo. Hope nga okay na ang atong mga kabataan, hugasin na sila ipa-shower para condition nila is fresh. fresh ang feeling. Okay, pasubo dito no sa akong brother-in-law kang kuan Ricardo Marfori, ang yatang pamilya no, yang yung anak o ang asawa ni taliwan sa laing kalibutan. So pasubo gikan sa amo pusab nga pamilya sa mga Marfori family o gingon man sa mga kaigalaan, sa mga kaigsuunan, kaparintihan ni Juaneta now Marfori, gabukan Marfori nga nitaliwan na siya sa laing kalibutan o magkita na sila sa iyang anak. Una man gyud ang iyang anak nga nitaliwan gyud no, una ang iyang anak igo lang nga gikremate niya ang iyang mama nasad o munang iyang nanay gyud basta dunay mga comorbidities o munang sa inyo lang kinahanglan nga kanang careful kita kanunay sa atong lawas, need nato nga dunay proteksyon o kuan kanang gamit ta kanunay og face mask, face shield, hugas ta kanunay sa kamot mo nang ang atong kuan kinahanglan proteksyonan nato ang atong sulod sa atong panimalay, atong pamilya, atong mga ginikanan, mga kabataan, labaw sa tanan kita kay labi na gid nga sige taglakaw-lakaw, trabaho, and then kanunay gyud kung pwede gikan ka maglakaw, gikan ka trabaho, pag uli mo sa balay ligo bidayon no, maligo gyud ka kay kuan kanang ang mga virus nagpilit-pilit pa sa atong lawas, atong sinina, atong makuan niya di nato malikayan ang mga kabataan mo kuan gyud sa imo kanang mo gapos gyud sa imo ha. So manang kinahanglan kuan gyud kaon pud tag insakto nga pagkaon, unya dan pahulay, unya dan vitamins mo ginang naa gyud. And then careful lang kita di ta magpasaya sa atong lawas.